Cadison now has one of the widest Homage model ranges on AliExpress, giving run for their money to other Homage brands. And the thing is that when the designs across the brands are, should we say, somewhat or actually very similar, the differentiating factors that we are left with are the build quality and the price. A so-called price-to-quality ratio, and lately Cadison has been pushing their prices down quite aggressively. So where does it leave the quality? What compromises did Cadison have to do on this watch? Well, we have it here. Actually, I have two of them here. So let's find out. Hello and welcome back! Before we take a closer look at this 38mm 62 mask Homage from Cadison, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews. I guess we should talk about the price first. At the time of introduction, this Cadison was selling for over $100, at around $110 mark. Cadison now seriously entered the well under $100 territory, with this watch priced on the stainless steel bracelet at around mid-$70 and on the rubber strap even cheaper. As a matter of fact, I paid $58 on special for this one on a stainless steel bracelet. I also have a rubber strap version here with me, which is currently used as a daily by my relatives, so I will show you how each of these wear on my about 7-inch wrist and of course on a 6¼ wrist later in this video. Dimensions. So this is a 38mm version of 62 mask Homage, which is more true to the size of the original Seiko 62 mask Diver released in 1965, and actually to some degree more in step with the current watch size trends of more compact dimensions. So we have 37.8mm bezel diameter, which is ever so slightly larger than the 37mm case. Case height is 12.6mm and lug-to-lug distance is just over 46mm, 46.2 to be exact. And the distance between the protruding end links is just a smidge under 51.5mm. So a very wearable timepiece and should work on pretty much most wrist sizes, possibly from about 5¾ inch in circumference and up. We have 18mm lugs here and the bracelet tapers down to 16mm at the clasp. On a fully supplied stainless steel bracelet, this watch weighs 146 grams and 132 grams after adjusting it to my about 7-inch wrist. Case. Looking at the case, we have a full stainless steel construction. I believe the initial version of this watch had a high polish flanks, however, this one now is fully brushed. We have circular brushing on top of the case and longitudinal brushing on the sides. Finishing is very decent. The transitions between the facets are crisp and yet feel smooth and well machined. I like the curvature of the lugs and fairly flat back of the case, making the case sit low and well planted on the wrist. The signed screw-down crown is well proportioned and is easy to grip and operate. Okay, the slight protrusion of the bezel over the case can be felt when operating the crown, but generally it is not a problem. Turning the case around and we are faced with quite minimalistic look. Circular brushing on the case and on the screw-on back case and engraved specs highlights around the perimeter. Cadison declared 200 meters of water resistance on this timepiece, which, with screw-down crown and screw-on back case, is entirely plausible and of course makes this a very practical watch that can be used even for some recreational diving. We have a 90 clicks unidirectional bezel. It looks like the bezel insert is made out of aluminium. The bezel looks really good and the coin edge grip is well executed. We have engraved and painted in white minute markers around the bezel and a lumed pip at 12 o'clock position. The bezel action is okay for the price point of this watch, however, there is a bit of a backplay, which is somewhat compensated by nice and tactile sound and good resistance. So, bezel gives a good impression, however, if this watch was priced closer to, let's say, $200 mark, I would definitely put it under more scrutiny. So, here is how it sounds. Crystal. We have a perfectly flat sapphire crystal here. It sits ever so slightly proud of the bezel and should reduce the risk of scratching the bezel insert, which is good. There is no mention of any anti-reflective coating in the listing of this watch, and to be perfectly honest, I don't see much evidence of it on the actual crystal. Still, the legibility is pretty good under studio lights as well as outside, so no complaints here. Bracelet. We have the bracelet and a rubber strap version here, so let's look at the bracelet first. We have a solid end links and a solid links. The bracelet integration with the case is done well. The fit of the end links and the case lugs is nice and snug and almost flush. And I also like how the end links pointing down and hugging the wrist. The only thing here that I'm not sure about is the difference between the brushing patterns between the case and the bracelet. Not the end of the world, but would be nice if the finishing was more similar. The rest of the stainless steel bracelet is fully brushed. Looks like Cadisen decided to get rid of the high polished center parts of the links that they have in the initial version of this watch, which I think is a good decision. It makes the finishing of this timepiece look more consistent and also reduces the visibility of scratches. By the way, the supplied screwdriver unfortunately didn't fit into the somewhat smaller screws, so you will need a small screwdriver to adjust the bracelet. Moving on to the clasp, Cadisen went with this popular design choice here. It is a very comfortable clasp and it even has an on-the-fly adjustment, so I think it is a good choice. And while the finishing on this signed and fully milled clasp is a bit better than I experienced on similar clasps from other brands, the final build quality is a bit lackluster and the locking mechanism is very hard to unlock. I guess this can be adjusted, but it would have been nice if it worked properly out of the box. Now, as for the rubber strap, well, it is a good quality strap. I like the pattern, goes very much in line with the aesthetics of the Seiko initial 62 mass release from 1965. We have a good quality brushed stainless steel buckle, it is unsigned, which is probably okay at this price point. This timepiece is very comfortable on the wrist, and as you can see from 7" and 6¼ wrist shots, the 38mm size makes it very versatile and suitable for most wrist sizes, and I think it looks great on both the bracelet and on the rubber strap. Dial. Of course, we have a very recognizable dial here. I must say that on all Cadisen watches that I've reviewed so far, the dial execution have been done really well. We have a nicely executed sunburst effect on the grey metallic background, there is a minute chaptering printed on the rehaut, we have applied our indices and they are filled with lume. The logo is also applied and the brand name and writing above the 6 o'clock markers are printed. And we have a date window cutout neatly framed at the 3 o'clock position. The hands are well proportioned and are of a good length. The hands have kinda darkened metal grey color, mimicking the grey surroundings of the applied hour markers. So, grey hands on the grey background, well, luckily the hands are filled with lume, so the dial legibility is still very good. Okay, let's take a look at the lume. Initially nice and bright, however soon it starts fading, and unfortunately the hands fade quicker than indices. So at this price point I guess some compromises had to be made, and as it usually happens, lume is one of the first areas that get scaled down. Movement. We have a Seiko NH35 movement in the back of this watch. Vintage Seiko homage, appropriately powered by a Seiko movement. Good design decision here by Cadisen, I think. It is an automatic mechanical movement, it beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour and it has about 41 hours of power reserve, and putting it on a time grapher we can see a good accuracy, so looks like Cadisen most likely regulates these movements because this level of accuracy was also observed by other reviewers. So what's my verdict? Well, when we enter sub-$100 territory, there will definitely be some compromises made. The key question is, of course, will those compromises become a deal breaker or not? So, what issues did I come across after wearing this watch for a couple of weeks? Okay, we have somewhat weak lume. It is there, but as you saw, it is definitely not the strongest. And we have a possible quality control issue on the clasp that arguably can be dealt with one way or another, and we have a slight backplay on the bezel, although the bezel action in general is pretty good. Now, taking into account that this watch cost me $58, I don't consider none of the above a deal breaker. As a matter of fact, it is a very good looking watch and it is a pleasure to wear. And it is still very practical, with 200 meters of water resistance and a very scratch resistant sapphire crystal. What are your thoughts? Well, do let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this review, do hit that like button and of course subscribe if you haven't already done so, and as always, thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.